Tama was once a valiant knight who met his end at the hands of demons. However, after his death, he was reincarnated into the body of an S-rank behemoth, a creature capable of destroying entire nations in seconds, but at least that's what his status screen claims. And in reality, he looks like an ordinary cat. Tama is grateful for the second chance at life, but feels conflicted about becoming a monster, especially since he spent his entire human life slaying them. While contemplating his new existence, an E-rank slime slowly inches toward him. Tama can tell the slime is planning to eat him, so he quickly opens his status screen to pick a skill for self-defense. Unlocking the ability to fire rocks from his mouth, he uses it to kill the slime with ease. Relieved but hungry, Tama realizes he hasn't eaten since his reincarnation and decides to try the slime. And to his surprise, it tastes delicious. And even better, eating monsters grants him their skills, and from the slime, he gains the ability to store items. Encouraged by his newfound power, Tama decides to explore the dungeon further to see what other monsters or meals await him. And being an S-rank, none of the dungeon's inhabitants pose a real threat, and he effortlessly slays minotaurs, golems, and snakes, devouring them and absorbing their skills. So life as a cat monster isn't so bad after all, and Tama begins to enjoy his new existence. Meanwhile, at the dungeon's entrance, a well-endowed elf girl arrives, ready to begin her adventuring day. Back with Tama, his exploration leads him to a treasure chest, sitting in the middle of a room. Thrilled, he rushes to open it, excited to see a treasure in real life for the first time. And inside, he finds a massive gem, but before he can celebrate, he realizes the chest was a trap. And instead of being a mimic, the trap teleports him to a hidden boss room. So now Tama finds himself perched on the back of an earth dragon. And unlike the other monsters he's faced so far, this one is also S-ranked, meaning he won't be able to one-shot it like the rest. The earth dragon then mocks Tama for daring to intrude upon her lair, vowing to end his life. But Tama, literally only an hour old in this new life, refuses to die so easily. So he retaliates with his rock attack, but it's hilariously ineffective against an earth dragon. And the rocks bounce harmlessly off her tough scales, ricocheting into the ceiling and creating a small hole. The dragon counters by slashing at him, and Tama uses his iron body skill to defend himself. But while the skill keeps him alive, the slash still leaves him with severe injuries. The dragon, impressed by his survival, declares him tenacious but still no match for her, so she lunges forward to finish him off. But in a last-ditch effort, Tama activates a newly unlocked flight skill and slashes out her eye with his tail before escaping through the hole in the ceiling. Gravely wounded and losing blood rapidly, Tama desperately tries to make it out of the dungeon to find a safe place to recover, but he's mere steps away from the exit when he collapses from blood loss. As he lies helpless on the ground, he hears something approaching from around the corner. Unable to move, he assumes whatever it is will easily finish him off. But instead of a threat, it's the well-endowed elf girl from earlier. Spotting Tama's near-lifeless body, she rushes over to help him. Tama wakes up hours later, finding himself lying in a soft bed with his wounds bandaged. So he confusedly wonders where he is until the elf girl walks in carrying a bowl of milk. Remembering her face from before he passed out, Tama marvels at her beauty and silently admires those massive, well-done melons. The elf girl is relieved to see Tama awake, commenting on how severe his wounds were. She can't fathom how a tiny kitten like him could have ended up in the middle of such a dangerous dungeon. So Tama quickly realizes that she thinks he's just an ordinary cat rather than an S-rank behemoth. And since he can't talk, there's no way to correct her assumption. But even if he could, why would he want to? After all, this misunderstanding means he gets to sleep on her legendary cushion every day and night. Over the next few weeks, Arya continues to care for Tama until he is fully recovered from his injuries. One day, as Arya heads out for her usual dungeon run, Tama reflects on how grateful he is for everything she's done for him. She not only nursed him back to health, but also gave him food, a warm place to sleep, and unconditional kindness. Determined to repay her, Tama swears to protect her with his life, no matter what. So to ensure her safety, he decides to secretly follow her into the dungeon. He then sneaks aboard the boat before it departs and hides. When they arrive at the dungeon, Tama keeps a close eye on Arya, while staying hidden in the shadows. He worries about her potentially getting into some kind of ridiculous situation, like losing her clothes to a slime or something absurd like that. Determined to be ready for anything, he prepares himself to jump in at the first sign of danger. However, his concerns quickly ease as Arya encounters a group of goblins. She activates her acceleration skill and dispatches them with incredible precision, cutting them down effortlessly. After the fight, she bends down to collect the goblin eaters for the reward. And after watching her in action, Tama is genuinely impressed. His experience as a knight allows him to recognize the level of skill and speed in her swordsmanship, and he can't help but admire her ability. As Arya finishes storing the goblin ears, she spots another goblin lurking behind a corner and readies her stance again. She's already met her quota for goblins today. But if this one insists on attacking, she'll deal with it. What she doesn't realize, however, is that this isn't a regular goblin. It's a goblin mage. And before she can react, the goblin launches a massive fireball at her. Completely unprepared for such an attack, Arya finds herself in serious danger. Tama can't stand by and let her get hurt, and he knows using any of his overpowered skills would reveal that he's a monster, something he's not ready to explain. And instead he acts quickly, pushing Arya out of harm's way and lunging at the goblin mage. And with a slash of his regular kitty paws, Tama causes the goblin to stumble backward and tumble down the dungeon stairs to its demise. Arya, stunned by the turn of events, can't fathom how or why Tama is in the dungeon, but her gratitude for his intervention is clear. On the boat ride back to town, she lets him curl up on her ample chest, rewarding him with belly rubs, and that shit makes him hooked on it. After returning to town, Arya heads straight to the Adventurers Guild to submit the goblin ears she collected. On her way to the reception desk, she's stopped by Lord Casman, a man she's met before and has been actively trying to avoid. Casman, as usual, tries to convince Arya to join his party, but she politely declines, already well aware of his reputation as a scumbag, but Casman refuses to take no for an answer. As if to prove this sleaziness, he reaches out, aiming for a double dirty cheek grab. But before Casman can make contact, Tama leaps into action, biting his hand and latching on tightly. Casman screams in pain, flailing wildly, but Tama doesn't let go. When Casman finally shakes Tama off, the cat lands on his face, clawing him up before jumping back to Arya's chest. Casman, now enraged and humiliated, reaches for his sword, intent on attacking Tama. But before he can swing, the guildmaster Arnold Schwarzenegger, known as Anna, grabs Casman's sword mid-draw and warns him that the guild has strict rules against drawing weapons for petty reasons like fighting a cat. So she warns him that there will be serious consequences if he proceeds. Realizing he's no match for Arnold's authority, Casman reluctantly backs down and storms out of the guild. Arya then thanks Arnold for stepping in, but he says it's nothing and praises Tama for defending her so fiercely. Arya then heads to the reception desk, where Arnold documents the goblin ears, officially completing her quest. Afterwards, Arya sits at a table to relax and spend time with Tama, and things seem wholesome as she tickles his stomach, but the mood and the looks in her eyes take a turn when her fingers drift a little too low, grazing his more private areas. And the pervert elf looks way too damn excited about that shit. Later, Arya gets ready to take a bath and insists on bringing Tama along. Still clinging to his honor as a former knight, Tama refuses to enter a women's bath. But Arya has other plans, and despite his protests, Tama ends up in the bath with her. While they soak, Arya begins to talk about her dreams. She tells Tama about how her village was nearly destroyed by demons years ago, with the legendary sword saying Alicia appeared and saved everyone. And since then, Arya has dedicated herself to becoming as strong and heroic as Alicia. The next day, Arya heads to the guild with Tama, and as they walk through town, Tama notices how well-liked Arya is by everyone. The townsfolk greet her warmly, showing how much they admire her. When they arrive at the guild, Arya cheerfully greets Arnold at the reception desk. However, Arnold's face turns serious as he warns her that today isn't a good day to be here and advises her to leave quickly. Unfortunately, before Arya can take his advice, Casman struts into the guild with an air of smugness. He loudly announces that after being injured by her cat, he reported the incident to the Baron. And as a result, he was issued a special order declaring that Arya's pet cat must be put down. Arya is horrified. Even though she hasn't had Tama for long, he's already incredibly precious to her, and she can't bear the thought of losing him. So she falls to her knees, pleading with Casman to show mercy. Casman, reveling in her desperation, proposes a duel. If Arya wins, Tama's life will be spared, but if Casman wins, Arya must agree to marry him. The terms are grossly unfair. Not only is Casman a higher rank than Arya, but the stakes are heavily skewed in his favor. Yet with no other options to save Tama, Arya reluctantly agrees. The duel begins, and he immediately kicks Arya in the side, sending her sprawling. As she recovers, he sarcastically compliments her speed, taunting that it won't be enough to defeat him. Arya then switches tactics, throwing a flurry of daggers at Casman, but his knife-proof cape renders the attack useless, and he easily deflects them. Casman then closes the distance and presses forward, relentlessly striking with his sword. Arya struggles to defend herself, but is eventually disarmed, leaving her vulnerable and at his mercy. With her weapon gone, all hope seems lost for Arya. Tama watches the scene unfold, his mind racing. If he does nothing, Arya will be forced to marry Casman, but if he steps in and uses his skills, everyone will realize he's a monster. Casman then raises his sword, ready to deliver the final blow and force Arya to surrender. But just as he swings, Tama makes his decision to protect her and leaps in front of the blade, activating his iron body skill to block it. The force of the skill shatters the sword, leaving Kazman stunned. Tama then unleashes a powerful howl skill, sending Kazman flying into a cluster of nearby trees. And by pure coincidence, the broken sword flies in the same direction, aiming straight for Kazman's balls. And this result ensures Kazman's day goes from bad to absolutely miserable. The crowd erupts into murmurs, stunned by what they just witnessed. Everyone knows they saw the cat use skills, something no ordinary pet could do. Tama had anticipated this moment, knowing his actions would reveal his secret, so he's certain it's only a matter of time before the crowd realizes he's a monster. And when they do, they'll likely come for him. But despite this, Tama feels no regret because his only concern was protecting Arya, and in that he succeeded. Arya and Arnold then approach Tama cautiously, both clearly amazed. They begin discussing what Tama could be, but instead of concluding he's a monster, they convince themselves he must be an elemental cat, a rare and magical creature. Tama, stunned by their misunderstanding, can hardly believe his luck. Arnold then declares Arya the winner of the duel, and with the matter settled, everything returns to normal, or as normal as life can be for an overpowered cat with the most legendary and comfortable cushion in the world. The next morning, Arya tries to cuddle Tama out of bed, but the playful kitten decides to nibble on her ear in a way that leaves her flustered and blushing uncontrollably. As a former honorable knight, Tama quickly decides to stop before things get even more awkward, so he jumps off the bed to walk away. However, Arya continues calling after him, her tone filled with longing, making the situation even stranger for Tama. Later, Arya takes Tama to the blacksmith's shop to visit her friend Vulcan. The moment they arrive, Vulcan's attention is immediately drawn to Tama, unable to take her eyes off the adorable kitten. Arya talks about Tama, sharing stories as Vulcan eagerly asks to hold him. Tama looks thrilled as Vulcan lifts him up, admiring his cuteness. However, Arya quickly shifts focus to the reason for their visit. She needs Vulcan to make armor for Tama. Vulcan is delighted at the idea, excited to work on something so unique and charming. So she begins taking Tama's measurements right away, promising Arya she'll create the perfect armor for him. As Vulcan gets to work, Arya bends down to whisper to Tama, asking if he's ready for an adventure. Tama eagerly agrees without hesitation, his tail flicking with anticipation. While Arya and Tama make their plans, Vulcan is laser-focused on crafting the armor, treating the task like it's her life's mission. In just under 10 minutes, Vulcan proudly presents the completed armor, and it turns out to be a masterpiece. Tama looks dashing in it, and the fit is perfect. However, Vulcan admits she's still struggling with another issue, Arya's sword. Despite reforging it over 100 times, she hasn't been able to make it any lighter, which makes it difficult for Arya to wield effectively during her quests. After some thought, Vulcan suggests forming a temporary party. This way she can observe Arya in action, watching how she swings the sword to better understand the problem and find a solution. That day, the team dives into the dungeon, where Vulcan quickly demonstrates her strength, smashing through the hideous goblins they encounter. Arya watches with pure excitement, marveling at Vulcan's boldness and power, while Tama thinks Vulcan is both fearless and incredibly skilled. Her skills are further validated when she blocks a fireball attack from one of the monsters, using an ability derived from her smithing talents. Vulcan explains that her power allows her to wrap her armor in different elements, making her versatile in battle. Then with the path cleared, Vulcan steps aside, encouraging Arya to take over with her sword. Their next challenge turns out to be an ugly, oversized orc. The creature's grotesque appearance is both disgusting and intimidating, but Arya attacks anyway. Using her acceleration skill, she tries to land a strike, but the orc skillfully blocks her advances. Tama then steps in, soaring through the air and activating his iron body technique to shield Arya from an incoming blow, distracting the orc just long enough. Seizing the moment, Arya strikes and eliminates the beast in a single and decisive attack. Vulcan observes Arya's movements closely and notices her longsword hinders her flow in battle, making her strikes less effective. Arya, unsatisfied with her performance, turns to Vulcan and asks for an even tougher challenge, determined to push her limits and grow stronger. Impressed by her resolve, Vulcan encourages her to advance to the next floor, promising even greater challenges ahead. Descending further, the team encounters a swarm of slimy, perverted roppers instead of massive beasts. Tama instantly grows anxious, fearing these slimy creatures will grab his mistress from all angles with their tendrils. Vulcan then warns Arya to move smartly and avoid their sticky grips at all costs. So Arya charges in with acceleration, but the ropers' speed makes them tough opponents. Her strikes fail to connect with their bodies, and one of the ropers shatters her heavy sword, leaving her defenseless. But just as she's about to be ensnared, Vulcan hurls a knife toward her. Arya catches it midair and swiftly drives it into the roper's core, killing it in one precise motion. With renewed determination, she pivots to take down the next slime. And while Vulcan observes Aria's battle style, he quickly concludes that Aria's true strength lies in wielding shorter, lighter weapons instead of her heavy longsword. And in no time, Aria slices through the monster's body parts with unmatched speed, leaving Vulcan utterly stunned. She always knew Aria had skill, but she hadn't expected this level of speed and efficiency in taking down the second monster. Just as they think the battle is over, the monster splashes its goo all over Aria, coating her from head to toe while regrowing its limbs. Disgusted and furious, Aria cringes, declaring that only Tama has permission to do something like that. Fueled by her outrage, she obliterates the creature in a single devastating move. But this time, she cuts it into so many pieces that there's no chance of it regenerating. Vulcan and Tama rush to congratulate her on her incredible display of skill. But while Vulcan moves closer to offer praise, Tama, being the cheeky little kitten he is, stops halfway to steal a bit of juice from the dead monster to absorb its skill for his own use. Meanwhile, Aria is still fuming, vents her anger on the remains of the roper that had dared to splash its nasty goo on her. She relentlessly pierces his already mangled body, muttering revengeful thoughts, while Tama watches in bewildered silence, wondering if she's gone a little overboard. After the massacre, Aria opens up to Vulcan, sharing the story of her motivation for wielding longswords. She recalls meeting the Sword Saint during her childhood, a figure who became her idol and inspired her to pick up the weapon. Despite the longsword being ill-suited to her natural fighting style, Aria dedicated years to mastering it in an effort to emulate her hero. However, with her recent realization that daggers complement her skills far better, she has decided to embrace this newfound strength. Tama listens attentively and offers his support, reassuring her that this change will only make her stronger. Seeing Aria's growth, Vulcan proposes heading to a deeper floor of the dungeon, confident in Aria's ability to handle the challenges with her daggers. Before moving forward, they take a break near a Philosopher's Stone, a rare artifact that repels monsters in its vicinity. As they rest, Aria gazes at the stone, triggering a wave of painful memories from her childhood, when her home was attacked by demons. Lost in thought, she barely notices Vulcan's concerned look, but when Vulcan gently asks if something is wrong, Aria brushes it off, quickly changing the subject and steering the conversation elsewhere. While the group takes a break, Amma splashes around in a pool of water, carefree and enjoying himself. Seeing him having so much fun, Aria decides to join in, removing her plot armor and giving Tama a clear view of what's beneath. Vulcan soon joins and the three take a refreshing dip together. But as Tama swims, he tries hard to focus on anything but their exposed classified documents. During their downtime, Aria casually asks Vulcan about her usual dungeon party, unintentionally touching on a sensitive subject. Vulcan admits that her party disbanded after two of the members fell in love and the female member became pregnant. So the couple decided to settle down, leaving their adventuring days behind. The conversation then takes a strange turn when Vulcan mentions that elemental cats like Tama can crossbreed, and she muses about what might happen if Tama grows larger and goes into a serious heat season. Aria surprisingly finds the idea exciting and enthusiastically encourages Tama to grow up faster so she can have his adorable meow meow babies. And that shit makes Tama silently thinks to himself, what kind of madness is this? Then as their break ends, the group heads to the next dungeon floor, where they encounter a fierce minotaur. And unlike the goblins and ropers from earlier, this creature is a formidable opponent. Aria then approaches carefully, accelerating toward the beast and executing her whirlwind slash technique. However, her attack barely scratches the minotaur's thick hide, leaving her shaken. Vulcan then steps in, offering encouragement and helping Aria regain her composure. Motivated by Vulcan's support, Aria refocuses, launching a series of faster and more aggressive strikes. The minotaur, overwhelmed by her speed, begins swinging its massive weapon wildly. One swing strikes the ceiling, causing debris to fall dangerously close to Vulcan. Tama, quick on his feet, uses his ether-howling skill to deflect the falling boulders, saving Vulcan just in time. Inspired by Tama's bravery, Aria sees an opening and delivers a powerful strike directly to the Minotaur's chest, bringing the beast down for good. As Tama cheers for Aria's hard-earned victory, Vulcan stands in awe, marveling at the little cat's strength and courage. And her thoughts wander as she can't help but think that Tama is a really powerful alpha male. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Aria, Vulcan, and Tama hand over the loot they collected from their dungeon raid. They then approach Arnold, who examines the deep-cut marks on the Minotaur remains and asks who managed to inflict such damage. With a proud smile, Vulcan reveals that the cuts were the result of Aria's newly honed skills. Arnold, recalling how much weaker Aria was when she first arrived in town, commends her growth and hard work. Flattered by the praise, Aria thanks Arnold, feeling a sense of accomplishment. With their earnings in hand, the trio heads to a local restaurant to celebrate their successful adventure. At the restaurant, Vulcan wastes no time indulging in heavy refills, impressing Tama, who can't help but wonder if she's a seasoned drinker. Aria then takes the opportunity to express her gratitude to Vulcan for her support during the raid, admitting how much fun she had working together. Vulcan shares the same sentiments, showing off a rare medicinal herb she collected in the dungeon as a memento. Their lively conversation makes Tama nostalgic, reminding him of his previous life as an adventurer when he had comrades to share such moments with. Still, Tama acknowledges that his current life isn't bad. After all, being the pampered pet of a gorgeous elf is a dream few would turn down. As their bond strengthens, Vulcan proposes forming an official party. Aria, caught off guard, is flattered but too shy to answer. Sensing her hesitation, Tama gently bites her hand and places it on top of Vulcan's, effectively sealing the agreement on her behalf. The group erupts into cheers, celebrating their newfound partnership. And riding the high of camaraderie, they decide to order more drinks and make the evening one to remember. Later that night, Tama finds himself trapped between Aria and Vulcan's plot armor. The snowed awkward situation doesn't help him sleep, especially when he hears Aria murmuring in her sleep, mentioning something about hoping Tama doesn't get too rough. Suspicious and mildly flustered, he manages to maintain his composure. Needing a distraction, Tama checks his stats and is surprised to find he's eligible for evolution. However, evolving could transform him into a massive behemoth, potentially ending his current life with Aria and Vulcan. Choosing loyalty over power, Tama decides to remain their cherished and dependable pet. The next morning, while walking through town, Aria and Tama encounter two thugs harassing a young girl, accusing her of being a pickpocket. Aria steps in immediately, and when the thugs notice her elemental cat, they scatter to avoid conflict. Aria then comforts the girl, learning she's an orphan, and takes her to a local church, where nuns care for other children. Listening to Aria's heartfelt conversation with the nuns, Tama is filled with admiration for his master's kindness and vows to support her even more than before. That evening, Arnold calls Aria to the Adventurers Guild to congratulate her on being promoted to C rank. He hands her a gleaming new rank pendant as recognition for her hard work. But their celebration is interrupted by a commotion at the quest board. Arnold then explains that people have gone missing in Linnern, a nearby town, with whispers of demons being responsible. Hearing this, Aria's resolve strengthens. Driven by her grudge against demons, she eagerly asks for more information and declares her intention to accept the emergency quest without hesitation. Upon hearing the details of the case, Aria pressed Arnold for every detail she knew about the case. Vulcan grew uneasy at the elf's eagerness to take the lead, doubting it was within her capability. Yet Aria, unwavering, was determined to act before more people fell victim. Impressed by her determination, Vulcan offered his help, and Arnold observed that under the circumstances, a mercenary company might soon recruit the two. At that moment, a young man in a tunic stepped into the guild. He introduced himself as Cedric, and the adventurers immediately recognized him as the Duke's eldest son, renowned for his skill in managing labyrinths. Cedric greeted Vulcan warmly and assured her and Aria they'd soon fight side by side. Tama then remembered Cedric from the war called Ragnarok, where humanity fought against demons. Despite devastating losses, victory was achieved thanks to a prodigious boy, the Grand Mage, who led them to triumph and earned legendary hero status. Amid the excitement, Aria grew concerned their group was too small to handle such immense threats. Arnold, captivated by Cedric's charm, reassured her, claiming Cedric could amaze anyone. As Aria held on to him affectionately, Arnold reminded her to keep such displays private. Aria curiously asked if they were a couple, and Vulcan confirmed it, leaving Tama baffled. Remaining quiet until they returned home, Tama noticed his master's unease. Understandably so, given the looming dangers of their journey alongside the hero. The cat Tama licked the elf's face as if to comfort her, and she kissed him back. Startled by the exchange, Tama refocused as the group prepared to depart. On their journey, they encountered new allies: the silver-haired Danny, the humanoid monster Howard, the fiery red-headed Keeney, and Marietta. Aria introduced Tama, who quickly won everyone over with his irresistible cuteness. Marietta even took turns carrying him. However, their peaceful ride came to an abrupt halt when a band of orcs blocked the road. Cedric instructed Danny to handle the threat, and the swordsman effortlessly defeated the orcs without any visible effort. Vulcan gets intrigued and asked about Danny's abilities, and Kenny confirms he hasn't used any skills. Aria began to grasp the incredible strength of the Ragnarok heroes, while Tama marveled at Danny's sheer raw power, eagerly anticipating the chance to fight alongside him. When night blanketed the sky, they reached Leonard Village, where grateful townsfolk welcomed Cedric and his group. One villager revealed that many locals had mysteriously disappeared, with a search party lost in the ruins and another girl abducted the previous night. The revelation brought painful memories of Aria's homeland's invasion flooding back. The village leader then shared that Cedric's knights were their final hope. Seeing the warriors weary from their journey, the villagers swiftly prepared a hearty meal to replenish them. Later, as they settled into their lodging, Aria grew curious and asked why each of her companions had chosen to become knights. Danny explained that his family's poverty forced him to join to repay debts, and Howard shared a similar tale. Keeney needed money to buy medicine for her sister, and Marietta sought freedom for her father who was enslaved. Hearing these heartfelt stories, Tama noticed the sadness behind their motivations, and even Aria regretted raising the question. Yet the knights held no shame in their choices because they had paid their dues and were now carving their own paths. Cedric, on the other hand, revealed a starkly different reason. He had no interest in love or familial obligations. As the Duke's son, he joined the Order because he lacked a greater purpose and discovered joy in slaying monsters. His bluntness didn't sit well with everyone, but no one challenged his perspective. After dinner, it was time to bathe. While the girls relaxed, the boys, overcome by youthful mischief, tried sneaking a peek. Tama, ever alert, caught them in the act and, with a thunderous shout, sent Danny and Howard scurrying back to their quarters. Cedric watched their hasty retreat with mild amusement, wondering about their excitement for the journey, though he couldn't fully relate to it. With the group refreshed, they ventured deeper into the ominous Leonard labyrinth, unaware that a sinister creature was stalking their every move. To this lurking predator, the adventurers were nothing more than prey. It silently observed, preparing to gather strength and set its deadly plan into motion. Before long, a pack of sea werewolves blocked the adventurers' path, so Howard the Tank stepped forward, raising his massive shield and taunting the wolves to draw their attention, creating space for the others to strike. Cedric can showcase his unmatched swordplay with precision, while Aria leaped into the fray, determined not to be outdone. Tama, observing the armored werewolves, considered unleashing a powerful roar, but opted for a water-based attack instead. Then, with pinpoint accuracy, he pierced one werewolf and swiftly took down two more, leaving his party stunned. The hidden monster, watching from the shadows, was shocked at how quickly his wolves were defeated, especially by Tama, who seemed to wield elemental power. Yet despite their strength, the monster knew he couldn't allow these intruders to advance. Reading himself, he prepared to escalate, either by deploying more weapons or stepping in personally. Back with the heroes, everyone was awestruck by the elemental cat's abilities. Aria, utterly captivated, openly expressed her admiration, even suggesting she wouldn't mind being subdued by Tama's strength. Though he found her words peculiar, Tama resisted his animal instincts, reminding himself that Aria was still his master. They soon arrived at a chamber filled with an oppressive, crushing atmosphere. So Cedric raised his hand, halting the group. Then from the shadows emerged Beryl Astaroth, the labyrinth's master. He declared that their journey would end here, revealing himself as a surviving demon seeking vengeance for his fallen kin. Danny immediately accused Beryl of targeting Leonard Village as an act of revenge, but the demon dismissed the accusation, claiming that Leonard was just the start of a far greater plan. Then, with a sinister grin, he summoned a group of trolls to attack. Recognizing their power, Cedric ordered the team to split up, but Beryl anticipated this and conjured a protective wall that separated Tama from the others. Then we see a troll charge at Tama, who retaliated by tearing off his arm. However, to his dismay, the limb regenerated almost instantly. Meanwhile, Cedric's team gets surrounded, and the group knows their only chance is to rely on Cedric to lead their escape. So Cedric unsheathed his blade, which began to pulse with dark magic, and with a wicked laugh, he charged at two trolls, slicing them apart so thoroughly they couldn't regenerate, removing them from the battlefield entirely. Beryl's eyes widened as he recognized the forbidden magic Cedric wielded, an ability used only by the great mage during the Ragnarok War. Cedric then smirked with amusement because this was going to be so fun for him. Then we see Tama attempt a stone war attack, but the trolls barely flinch and their wounds heal instantly. Realizing the danger, Tama retreats, his mind racing as he considers whether to evolve into his stronger form. But evolving would mean severing his bond with Aria, a sacrifice he isn't willing to make. Resolute in his decision to remain her loyal companion, Tama unleashes Flame Roar instead, scorching the trolls so their wounds cannot heal. His bold tactic works, and the trolls collapse. Furious at the relentless assault, Beryl readies himself for the next threat. Vulcan charges in, swinging his massive hammer, but Beryl deftly dodges and parries Aria's follow-up knife strike with his dagger. Beryl smirks and mocks the hammer's sluggish swings, only to be caught off guard when Vulcan kicks up a cloud of dust, blinding him. Seizing the opportunity, Aria darts forward and drives her blade into Beryl's chest. At first, he dismisses the wound as trivial, but then light radiates from the elf's enchanted dagger, amplifying the damage and forcing him to his knees. Snarling in pain, Beryl strikes back with his dagger, delivering a vicious wound to Aria. Far more than a simple cut. The group rushes her aside, panic setting in as Tama fears the weapon might be poisoned. Then we see that Beryl is still alive and smirks darkly, while declaring that humanity will crumble when true power returns. Then, with those ominous words, his body begins to petrify, turning to stone before crumbling into dust. Meanwhile, the poison spreads rapidly through Aria's arm. Cedric examines it and grimly identifies it as dragon venom, a deadly toxin. Howard presses the wound against his enchanted shield in an attempt to slow its progress, and the group rushes back to Leonard Village. The village doctor confirms their worst fears. Dragon poison is fatal within a day and a half, and no one has ever survived without the eye of an earth dragon. Desperate to save Aria, the team debates hunting the beast, but Cedric vehemently objects, arguing there isn't enough time. As Aria's pain intensifies, Tama, overwhelmed by guilt and desperation, flies out the window. Memories of Aria saving his life flood his mind, and he vows to return the favor, even if it costs him everything. He races to the ruins where he was reborn as an elemental cat, prepared to face the Earth Dragon, the same creature he fought once before and barely survived. The dragon, surprised to see Tama return, sneers and mocks him for fleeing their last encounter. But this time, Tama doesn't waver. He knows deep down that his current strength won't be enough. Faced with no other choice, Tama makes a life-altering decision. He chooses to evolve into a full behemoth, embracing his ultimate power to save Aria. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.